Well, thank you so much, Rob Bell, for being here.
This
I'm
is
so
great.
excited
Good to
to
see you.
talk about this guy right here, this thing right here. Can I tell you, I'm not trying to brag, but I actually read it twice. And it's because all through the book, I'm picking up on things. It felt like I'm reading the story, but it felt like you're kind of dropping little breadcrumbs along the way. And by the end of
Oh,
it, I was like, I got the story, but I feel like it's all connected on another layer. Like there's other things to find here. And so I actually, it's one of the very few times that I've done that. And I reread it, and I'm finding all these little connection points from the beginning to the end. I'm experiencing this character learn and open up in a new way. And it was just such a joy to do that.
oh, wait. So you read the book and then you started over and read it a second time. And the second time you saw, oh, that's just so interesting. The second time it was like a different experience, which is often how it is, but I just think it's fascinating with this book.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, I mean, um, well, let me start with this. This isn't to that point, but I mean, the name of the book is "Where'd You Park Your Spaceship?" And let me just say my experience first on that. I read the title of the book, and there's a little like it feels like a light like kind of like chuckle like, oh, this sounds fun. This sounds like a fun book. What's this going to be about? An interplanetary tale of love, loss, and bread? Like I'm giggling. But when I'm in the book and Dill Tud finally says that question, asks that question, um, I it was like a
Okay,
mic
wait.
drop. Are you there? Can you hear me?
Did I
You
uh
you
huh.
got me. It froze up there for
You
1 second.
you were about to say something super interesting. So can you
Okay.
say that part again?
Yeah, yeah. Um, so the title of the
Oh,
book,
the
Where'd You
title,
Park?
you laughed.
Yes, yeah, it's a laugh. But then when I get into the book and Dill Tud finally asks that question, it's a mic drop moment. I actually was like, oh shit, like things just got real here. It took me off guard, and the whole thing pulled me in even deeper there.
Because you had when it does finally come, you had like a, oh my God, he's been found out. Wait, has he
Yeah,
revealed himself? Oh, is what happened?
yeah,
Yes,
yeah.
because
And I
that's how that.
go
Go
ahead.
ahead.
Well, I was just saying
That's
I felt Heen's feeling because that I think my reaction was his, like oh no, like this isn't good.
that makes. I can't even tell you how thrilling that is to me. And that was what was interesting about in the middle of the night, this guy asking this guy, "Where'd you park your spaceship?" And for a couple nights in a row, a couple years ago, I was like, "Why do I? What is the story that I'm fine that's like coming in?" Or essentially, and I remember one of the first things was, "How does he feel about this question?" And I was like, "Oh no, he does not like it. Oh, it's terrifying." That like the whole way the story sort of birthed in me was, why doesn't he like it? Oh, like that was that feeling was the original feeling of the entire book was, so which meant, oh, so we're gonna have to go back so far that by the time you get to this you understand why he doesn't this. So I love that you were like, oh my God, what's gonna happen now?
Yeah, well,
Yeah.
you've talked about how this book came to you in that dream, and it made me think because I've worked my past self was a lot. I was in the music space, and there's this phrase that often would come up in the studio or with songwriter friends where like a song writes itself. You get that one that kind
Mm,
of just feels
mm-hmm.
like it's just coming through you, that's flowing through you. The way you've talked about how this book comes, it feels like it has that quality to it. But writing a book isn't something that you do in one day. So I was wondering if you could tell me a bit more about the long
Yeah.
arc of that. What was it
Yeah,
like to
you're
show
right.
up every day to it?
You're right because like you think about Blur song 2, you think about how many songs where they're like we played for 20 years and then all of a sudden one day before we went to lunch, the song all of a sudden we just found it. It found us. Right, a book's slightly different because it's like it found us and then for 7 months for 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 2.5 years. But yeah, it kept coming. I had written some books, so I had an experience of knowing when you have enough to start writing, like feeling of like, oh yeah, there's something here. But this one, I just kept making notes, and the story just kept filling a notebook in the clothes closet, where I'd sort of stop by and make a note and then go on with my day. Yeah, so when I and this whole process, it's very interesting. It opened up something very tender, like vulnerable or tender or earnest. Like, is it okay if I just follow this? Because this sounds like the most enjoyable thing ever. It's like I don't know who I was asking myself. Um, I just want to follow this. And then it like quickly like asked for a rule of life. It like really did order like, oh, take your daughter to school, then we're going to sit down. And then the other books, a couple hours in the morning, and then I'd be like, oh God, can I go out and play? It's just like, just I did my pages for the day. Can I go do something else? And this was like, oh wait, it's time to pick her up from school. Wait, did we just wait? I think we had lunch. Otherwise, I think it was like 7 hours. It just and then what would I don't know what you call it. Whatever my other jobs were, it started filling in like in the edges and cracks and margins because this was just such a distinct experience, unlike anything I'd ever had. Felt like everything was a warm up for for this one. It was
Mm.
it was very disorienting at first, and especially because I had this wonderful, almost like trap door built into it of no one may ever read this. This might be complete rubbish. Like this might just be you, like you know what I mean, like recording songs in your garage. Like it just might this might just be like you don't even this has zero promise or outcome. It was like it was so free from any of that, and it was all so absurd that it was just had nothing on my shoulder other than just follow it. And I noticed how deeply it was moving me, and I was like, cross. I would be like, I think those that pat that 57 pages from the past couple of days that just came out. I think it's almost like the subconscious was like, hey, we're here. We have a lot to process. You know what I mean? Yeah, it
That
was.
was that was my experience reading it. I mean,
Whew.
you said vulnerability, and that's how it feels. I mean, I had this unique realization sometime in I don't know, beginning of 2022 that the last couple of years, like even further, I had been putting everything that I was putting into my mind in front of me was like information, editorials, thought leaders,
Right, right.
people talking about what's going on. But it
Heads
was
talking to heads, minds talking
yes,
to minds.
yes, yes. But it was devoid of story. It was devoid of heart. And I was watching, I forget what show it was. I was watching some show on Netflix that was a few years back, and they were doing an episode on COVID. And to see actors go through it, there was something about it that like opened me to see a story about it and not to hear someone just talking about it. It's like it took me out of my head and allowed me to come down into my heart and feel those things and move that energy. And that's what it was like reading the book. I mean, from the start, let's start from the beginning. Like the earth doesn't make it. And as I'm reading about this world that you're creating, where humanity has learned and there's new arrangements that are being made, I was feeling so much hope as I was reading about this world because it felt like, oh yeah, we can figure it out. Like we can humanity made it. Like it was so nice to not have to read a story about you know, a doomsday scenario of everything falling apart and it just staying in that world. This is like Mad Max and like your dystopian future. Like to read of a world where humanity grew from it and has come up with a new way to be. I just so enjoyed the first section of the book that was
You said
tipping
that
you off
so.
to that world.
It's interesting how every interview and discussion about this book, it starts with what would right now be the worst thing to happen, the fear in the air right now.
Yeah.
It starts with, yeah, that happened, almost like, yeah, get over it, let's get on, which weirdly doubles back on imagination and hope and clarity on this world. Like take the thing, like you think about every parent, your worst fear about what could happen to your kid, like say it out loud and then watch how weirdly free you are in some new way.
Yeah.
That could happen. Yes, that has happened to parents. Parents have. You just go all the way. They've buried their kid early. They've kids taken their life. Like take all the things that a parent runs in your head, like absolute worst. Can't even see. The thing that can't be spoken has so much more power than the thing you can say.
Yeah.
Like haunts us at some level. So you speak it, and you see the place that it occupies in your mind. It's almost like you're clearing up your mind. Like, yes, I spoke it, but I'm still here. That is a possibility, and I'm still here. We're still here.
Yeah.
There's something very counterintuitive about that, in which, like you said, the apocalyptic doomsday thing that keeps you suspended there. It's like, no, go the whole, no, don't keep us, go all the whole way. Go all the way in. Just take it even farther. That feels scary. Take it even scarier, and then see what happens.
Yeah.
Because weirdly, there are all these new energies on the other side. Strangely enough, very mysterious how all of our friends who had cancer and survived it, they're never like, so I went back to the couch because what's the point? It's always like, oh my God, it's a Tuesday. We're getting tacos. Is this amazing?
Right.
You know what I mean? It's
Yeah.
generally the response to it ended. I was done. I was given 3 weeks, and then it didn't happen. It generally, in casual observation, it generally interjects life with a whole new sense of wonder and awe and joy. It's very, very upside down the way that works.
Yeah. Yeah. And the interesting thing is the that story arc of the universe expanding and changing and growing is a little version of that we see in Heen. From where he starts to where he ends, it's like I said earlier, like he can't believe it. Like he has like oh shoot, like where is this going? Because there's that fear in the unknown. There's that fear in not knowing what's next. And am I allowed to feel these things? And am I allowed to think of myself in a bigger way, in a different way?
Oh, I just love how he begins to wonder, because he's like, I think I might be the best Series 5 in the universe. Like he thinks he
Yeah.
might be the best at his job. Like I go back for those uptakes, and I'm sitting in a room with all these guys who do my job, and look at these chumps. He's basically like, I'm like kind of great at what I do, but then he gradually begins to wonder, am I good at what I do? Because I'm like really numb.
Yeah.
like I think there's a reason why I'm really good at it, and I don't think it's a good reason.
Yeah.
And it's like gradually and then the Noonye shows up, and she has this ability to like connect with everybody. And he's like, how, and gets to the heart of people, and like figures out Bobby Freelance in like 10 minutes. And he's like, wait,
Right. Right.
my job is to see and yet I'm missing like most of what's going on around me. I
Yeah. What does he say? I notice, but I
notice,
don't see.
but I don't see.
Yeah.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
then he starts realizing, like he gets into those conversations and he's like saying like, "Oh, I see what you mean," or he's like volunteering, and then he's like, "Wait, I would never take part in a conversation like this. This is almost like
Right.
he's almost like embarrassed."
Yeah.
And then he's like, "And none of this could go in my report.
Yeah. Yeah.
The people who run the universe don't care about pretty much everything that went on just now in this conversation, and yet this conversation is the most interesting thing he's ever been a part of."
Yeah, yeah. It's pulling him in little by little, and that separation that like he's used to, that has created safety for him. That by being an observer outside of everything,
Yes,
he feels like he's in control and he's got safety. And
yes,
oh, like, and that I'm like, there were so many lines like where he's reflecting and he's talking about stuff, and I'm just like, oh my gosh, like, yes, that's like, I like it, memories are coming up, moments are coming up where it's like, I do that all the time. This is crazy and therapeutic to hear this coming from a character, you know? Because again, back to the story thing, if if like if if I hear, you could take like a line that Heen says. If I hear that from, I don't know, like a teacher, or like I read it in a self-help book, I read it and I notice the truth of it, but then I can immediately start to judge myself on it and measure up to the person that wrote it. It's like
yes,
I can create a hierarchical situation, but with a character, I'm not judged. I just accept it, and there's none of that baggage to it. It's so beautiful.
yeah, and yeah, like fiction. And I was like a my work for like 30 years was explaining, like, here's that truth, here's a image and a metaphor, a statistic, a picture, here's what I just said, only slightly differently. Here's a quick review. Here's ways that it might shape your life. Oh, by the way, here's the idea again, just a slight tweak on it. By the way, and here's what we just covered over the past 30 minutes. Okay, next, here's another way to see it. And there was something about this, following this story, that was like none of those muscles. It's like, no, you have to completely, because if you see a movie and the point's too obvious, you're like, ugh, God, it's so heavy handed, it's so on the nose. So this for me was what you're saying, like it was doing something to me so profound and intimate through this world somewhere else, sometime else, that it was like, wow, this is a whole, yeah, yeah, yeah. So that feeling that you're talking about of like, somehow this helped me more than if it was just said straight. It's yeah. Or
It's
I remember laughing. I would laugh so hard when I realized Keen starts to feel, but the first thing like his first sort of feeling as he starts to thaw, one of his first major feelings is supernatural irritation with this guy named Dill Tud, who gets under his skin and literally makes him hard for him to do his job, because this funny guy with weird speech patterns. So even that to me was, God, I loved it. I loved that he starts to feel, but it's not like universal oneness in the embrace of all of, it's just, get this, God, is this,
which
he's
is so
just so,
brilliant. While you introed, well, and that's what the brilliance of introing it that way, because it is, you, all we want is the good feelings, the open, like the we'll call it like the positive version of the curriculum, the lessons, like the
yeah,
invitations to become something more. The negative feelings, the pain points, like the trauma, like
yeah,
those are what we are trying to bypass and skip. And
yeah.
it's so hard, but the lessons are there too.
Right, right, right. And so Dill Todd is like sort of, he has this Dill Todd like, and then all of a sudden Nunez shows up, and it's like a whole other level of like terror mixed with, oh my God, I actually think she's quite beautiful. Oh my God, there's like a weird tension and companionship, but then she also does this thing where she can like connect with anybody that's super annoying. But I also find her, and then in the ravine, I didn't, as she's doing the ravine thing, and it just moved to full blown. Okay, that was just awesome. I don't even, he can't even have his like, and then he says to you, I realize every time I say anything positive about that, I'd have to just bring her down. But that thing and with the kids, it's
So
just
good.
like, okay, I give up. I give
Yeah.
up all my little chattering in my head. That
Yeah.
was just spectacular.
Yeah.
He's
He's
like, someone help me.
he's just swept up in the well, he finally succumbs to what everyone else experiences with Nunez, right?
Yes,
Yeah.
yes. And apparently she's an assassin. He's like, I just have to keep mentioning. She's a very,
Yes.
very bad person. And
Yep.
then she is like, you keep talking about me like you and I are different.
Right.
Like somehow you're part of them and I'm this intruder. And then he's like, double psilocybin reflex boomerang of like, right?
Well, and it starts to work on her eventually as well. That like towards the end when they're both having a sort of like effect on each other
Yeah.
is oh gosh. And it's why by the end of the book I'm like, okay, where's the follow up? Where's the rest of the story going? Because
Right.
it was such a beautiful, oh, such a incredible end. But I just had so much anticipation for what's next.
Oh, good. Good, good. I also think about people listening to your right now to your podcast going, what are they even,
Right.
is this in English?
That's okay. I actually made a note of that. I was like, I'm pretty sure I'm going to need to put a warning like, hey, this is pretty inside
Right,
baseball
right.
for
This is like,
Where'd You Park Your Spaceship? Read the book, then come back to this
this is
conversation.
like inside baseball if you've never seen a baseball game.
That's okay. We're the only ones here right now, so I'm having a good time. Oh,
That's really
man.
funny. That's really
Oh.
funny.
Um, this relates to what we were just talking about, and it's one of the lines that like it just hit me, and it immediately took me to a place. When I read it, it was on page 223 when he is wrestling with his place, working for the arrangements in the chairs, and he asks himself, "Do I work for the system, or am I creating the system?" And oh, it like it took me so specifically, Rob, to like a place where in a former life I'm a button pusher for big organizations that are putting out lots of different sort of communications, and it's so complicated because a lot of these people you know and you've grown up with, and you're connected to them, and you love them. But then I found myself in that exact expression, realizing that I'm part of something that I don't want to be anymore.
Yes,
Am I
yes,
supporting this thing, or what is it? And then what do you do in that moment where it's like this? I've said it before, like it started to build up like this almost like moral injury, this understanding like, oh, I can't go any farther with those people, with this space, and then it's lonely because you look around and no one else seems to see it, to notice it, and it's just like, damn, like what I guess I have to go, and I have
yeah,
no idea what that is.
yeah,
And again, to hear he express that was just like, ah, such a gift.
yeah, yeah. That this illusion of the interior versus the exterior, the illusion that they're, even how people talk about the news, like what's happening in the news, or even the internet, all the stuff on the internet. But every time I click on something, I'm telling the internet this is what I click on. So to say that the internet is a thing is to speak of something that is my creation, our creation. Same with government, same with business, the grocery store. Things are on the shelves because of the data they get from our purchasing patterns. So we are the grocery store. We're part of it. There's different parts within a whole. All divisions take place within a unity. So when that begins to sink in at like a body level, these things that we participate in, we are shaping, uh, then it's incredibly empowering. Essentially, most disempowerment about the news, the system, the government, etc., is a false belief that there's a thing out there. There's a firm wall between my interior and that exterior, when in fact the exterior or the larger is a collection. It's an amalgamation of a whole bunch of interiors. So it's like clean up your own thoughts, clean up your head, and watch what happens to the world around.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah. Yeah.
when that truth begins to hit, it's a quite beautiful thing.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, it sinks down, and like in my expression of it that I just communicated, it was like this negative sort of, oh, like I have to move somewhere else. But then there is, like you said, it's all connected, because I do get to create something. I do get to be a part of creating the world that I want to live in. And so what do I want to create? What do I want to do?
Oh man. And when you sit still, just a brief bit of self-inquiry, you can always find something to clean up, to do, to give yourself to. They're like there's plenty. There's plenty right here. There's plenty right here.
Yeah.
And and that is the world. Yeah, yeah. Yeah,
Yeah.
you're right. Yeah, that's something. That is
Well, and
something.
what this, I mean, we're, in some ways we're talking about the content in the book, the storyline of the book, but like you mentioned earlier, for you, the writing of this book was that process, is that process. And so I'm
Yeah.
inspired, and so grateful not only for the story and everything that it has, but in your doing of it, and of
Mm,
you listening and going it, because I'm so, the sort of people that I love to have on this podcast and that I talk to are people that are inspired, that see something and they go, they listen, they like respond to it. And the watching you and seeing you do this, is as thrilling, if not more thrilling, than the actual storyline.
uh, well, that's amazing to hear. Well, you were here in Ojai for 2 days, like watching people
Oh,
and watching a person, watching clarity emerge within a person. And I mean, sure, you were like me, watching person after person going, "Oh yeah, 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 that's pretty good right there. They're gonna be fine." Do you know what I mean?
yeah. That
And
space
watching
that's created under those oaks is so special and so unique. I mean, when I was there for the 2 day, I don't think I actually shared or talked the second day, but after the first day, um, I I was just so blown away. I was like, there should just be a spectator price for this thing. Like, people just need to get in on this. And I'm not kidding. I as an example of just being in that environment, I remember waking up 3 times in the middle of that first night, Rob, and I just had something, and I'm writing down, and I'm like up for like 45 minutes just writing
yeah,
thoughts,
yeah,
ideas. Go
yeah.
back to bed. Something else woke me up. I'm writing again. There's just something about the texture, the quality, and of the atmosphere that's created there, that is, when people all get together, yeah, it's just really special.
Yeah, yeah, and there's something like I followed this book, but watching people follow, yeah, I think I will. I think I'm going to get a smaller house. Yeah, I think I will move to that town. Yeah, I think I will approach what I do each day with a completely different understanding of what it even is. Like watching a human follow that, whatever you even call that, is just fundamentally riveting. It's just like there's whatever the thing is, but watching somebody sort through whatever is asking to be sorted through, yeah, and it just the game resets each person. It's on a whole. You get a whole new set of particulars, a whole new set of time and space, and where they live and what they do and what they're wearing and where they who's who they love, and just each particular, each thisness is just another expression of the isness, and it's all what a wonderful game to be a part of.
Yeah. Yeah. So good. So good.
Yeah.
Um, I want to ask you a little bit more about the writing process. Did
Mhm.
did the writing process like teach you, was there something new that you really learned about in the specific process of this book that you're taking with you, that you that opened something up for you?
Yeah. The previous books at some level, previous books, there was some form of a thesis. There's some form of a, it's an argument, no matter how unexpected, counterintuitive, funny, clever. It's still, what's the point? Just what happens next? There's like a certain kind of headspace logic. Love wins. Chapter one, chapter two, chapter three. Like you had said, you talked about book, thought leader books. Like my son calls it New York Times brain. The dominant kind of intelligence that has sort of ruled the systems that we were educated in, and well, New York Times itself, which is fine.
Yeah.
But this, so my work often, okay, and then what happens next? And then what happens next? And then like playing it out and lining it up. And so this was like following this story in some other way. Like like in some ways the direction of my life has just been more and more embodiment. It's almost like I came from a world that was stuck in its head. The way it dealt with the pain of life often was to stay stuck in its head. I mean, I was trained as a pastor, and the Protestant pastor, the Protestant Reformation, a guy put 95 feces on a door. Like, this is what we do with the pain of the world. We make lists of things. Um, and I know it's a generalization, and it's also very accurate. Um, so there's something about even the lineage that I come from that I honor, and also it just kept the conceptualization, the I think, what do you think, the splitting of hairs, so and so thinks, and this giant, I mean, happening on the planet right now, even with the earth, this return to the earth, to the body, to where do you get your food, to how soon will that t-shirt be in a landfill, or did you think through perhaps more sustainable ways to wear t-shirts? I mean, all the granular sort of in our bodies on the earth. What does this do? What is the effect? What does this mean 2 years from now? That so yeah, the book for me in many ways was this. It only worked to what happens next, to be present to it. I mean, partway through, obviously, I'm like, oh my God, Rob, your characters give a lot of speeches, and so I'd have to, like, you know what I mean? Be like, yeah, I probably, I always joke like somewhere NPR is doing an eye roll, like, oh my God, his characters, they're all just like. But then there was just, yeah, apparently when I write a book about a different planet, a bunch of the characters give speeches. Okay, Yeah.
I found that part
Or
very I found that part very empowering, Rob, because to see, obviously Keen is one of the main story arcs, but to see other characters have their own empowerment, stepping into who they are, like
right,
realizing they've got
right.
these superpowers.
They
It
each have like these weird superpowers that they're just
yeah,
sort of like, even like almost Ziga May is a little bit like, I don't know. This
yeah,
guy was like, these two guys were making breakfast and like they weren't talking to each other. And it was just annoying. And so I had my girlfriend who's telling this weird story about drinking water and sex. I stop. I got to go fix this. She's even like annoyed that she has this thing. And the rest of them are like, yeah, she's just like really good at sorting people out. She has no
yeah.
problem with, or Bobby Freelance, obviously, or like, there's all this, obviously. I'm talking about people who don't even exist. I'm like, Bobby Freelance. Um, yeah, so the writing was a, it was like I'd never written a book before. And it also felt like all those muscles that got built up from writing were being put to a whole new kind of use. And like, almost like the muscles were like really enjoying it. Like this, it's like we could do this. So yeah, it was, yeah, yeah. And it's changed the whole way. Well, even like the Robcast, my podcast, whereas I might in the past have been like, okay, here's the idea, here's the concept. And now like half the only way in is something that happened.
Mm.
Something happened. Here's what happened to me. Here's what I noticed. And yeah, I think there's a truth, a concept, some parsing or way to understand in there, which we'll probably get to. But yeah, it's yeah.
That's awesome.
Mm-hmm.
Did you get,
Or
was there any point in the process that you got stuck or you had to set it down, um, and
there was
give it some
one
space?
editorial choice. Well, originally it was 750 pages, so I took a whole book out of it. And so there was that first draft, as Kristen would say, Rob, not everybody thinks 750 is a good thing. Um, there was yeah, I had one significant, does it start with this section or this section? And so I switched them around for a bit and gave people two different people gave them two different versions to see. So that was like an editor thing where you're looking for like there's that slight I need an editor or an expert to weigh in, but there isn't one on this. I just have to go with, which is why the Earth didn't make it. Just no, just bang, and we're in. We're in. And the what's really interesting about what you were saying, you're gonna, the only way it works is if you go with this guy Heen. You like
Mm.
go with him, and it only works if you go with him, so that by the time some certain things happen later on, you have earned it. You get why this is, and that means you have to throw out. There were a couple people who are very well versed in publishing, and were like, you have to hook people with action, and the action doesn't really start till the end of the book. So you got to like hook them. You got to move all that to the front. You can't do all this. You're going to lose everybody. And there was like I see that note, and I'm not following it. I get what you're saying. It's a very good note. It's just some deeper knowing within me is like, no, you got to meet this guy when he's a kid. Because the people who do stay with it, yeah, that's what it's doing to me, is I got to go with him the whole way.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I felt that. I enjoyed, I was enjoying, like I said, the first, I don't know, third, maybe like halfway through the book. Just getting to know this world that you're creating. And there's just so many questions because the way that it's written is just like everything's just a given, right? Like, of course,
Yes,
you only
good.
have 10,000
Good.
people in a circle
Good.
and there's this and there's that. And you're taken along And so I enjoyed that part, and it made the hooks of Diltud, of Lines and Heen, and the oh gosh, like the search. Come on! I mean, that was another point where it was just like my reading, my words per minute just got cranked up in that process, and I was just pulled in. I mean, I've got tears forming. I'm like, what is going on with me here? And it just pulled me in. But I think it's to your point. You took the time to create a history and personality and story, and it made those moments that much richer.
That's really interesting. That's really compelling what you just said. Yeah. Yeah, like when he's searching for the boy and he's like, I could do one, but not two. And he's like, wait, I can't do
Oof.
three. Then actually, I had this really interesting thing recording the audiobook because certain moments in the book, like, just wreck me every time. And I've
Mm.
read the book, I don't know how many times. But I was recording the audiobook, and when he when he shows up back at the house and with what happens in the search,
Yeah.
and all of a sudden he realizes he may have sustained an injury, and they're like, I think a bit of your, I think there's a, I think you might have bitten off a piece of your
Piece of your
tongue, like
tongue.
that whole thing. There's like blood everywhere, and when he realizes he's being held, and it's Bobby Freelance, he's like, I got you, brother. It
Right.
like I literally was recording the audiobook and just couldn't stop tearing up and sniffling.
Mm.
And I had this moment in recording that, do I leave this in? Do I stop and collect myself and then keep recording? I no. I guess no, the audiobook has to feel like I'm just reading it to you. And if I was just reading it to you, this is what happened when I'm just reading it to you. That every time, every time when Bobby, he's like, somebody's like supporting me. Oh, it's Bobby Freelance. Got you, brother.
I'm so glad that you kept that in. I'm so, oh man, it makes me so happy to hear that. Oh,
Like, I don't know why these, and I think this, well, going back to your question about writing, uh, and I would say even the past year or two, my growing familiarity with the unconscious,
mm,
and even all the times when I was in some situation and my body was like shouting no or yes, and my mind just, hey, all right, so next Thursday, like just powered over the top of what my nervous system, body, guts. And I've been painting a lot, doing these acrylics, and like here's a new one, like just experiment
love
with these
it.
weird.
I
This
love
one's
it.
called. I think you should probably get that looked at. Trying to think. There's some others.
Show me something else. Show me another one.
Um, some of them are like have like some of them are just like
Oh man, that's
big
amazing. I
sort of
love those colors.
flower things. Some of them are like, here's three UFOs.
Yeah.
Now we are talking. So, um, what
And
else is here?
yeah, show me another one
But that
before I
has
ask you a
been
question.
huge. That's been all part of this because nothing like color, certain color works and a certain color doesn't, and you don't know why. So you're just like this thing right here is that this is a I use pieces of wood I salvaged from kitchen remodels, and this is like a chunk of an IKEA piece
Oh
that
wow.
like I don't, and even the different. So I'm dropping these using this acrylic pouring medium and dropping
Yeah.
paint, and certain heights produces different splatter, and I
Oh.
don't I couldn't explain to you why. Um, okay, I don't know if my battery's gonna last, but like
It's okay.
I can't explain to you why this one thrills me. Just a giant 5 foot guy with an eyeball, or
I
that
love
one,
it.
which is a 1940s pink kitchen cabinet.
Oh,
I can't explain why.
it's just play, right? I mean, it's just
It's just
creating
plain.
expression. Like,
There's something about, I don't know why certain colors work, or
hmm.
it splatters from this height that it's interesting, and when it splatters from that height, it's like forget that. I'll, when, on a regular basis, I'll take a bunch of the paintings and just go put them in the trash can. I'll be like a bunch of rubbish, bunch of crap. You know what I mean? And I don't
do
even
you
know
let
why.
do you
I'm
let
just
them
like,
go, or do you throw them, or do you let them go?
sometimes
Do you let them go, or do you
scrape
bring them back?
a lot of them. I scrape,
Okay.
and then I end up liking the thing that gets on top of the scrape, and the scrapes
Mm.
stay in.
Yeah.
And there's this one. See that red one?
Yeah. 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 Yeah.
I don't know what's going on with that thing. That's
Yeah.
oil, and it's I don't know. That thing just wrecks me. I don't even know why.
Wow. So
So
it's an emotional. You're getting emotional. You're getting emotional feedback with the color in the
it's like a
process.
whole different. Yeah, and what I've noticed is how many people, and I bet people listening to your podcast, the things that most light you up and like tune you in to the wonder and joy of reality, you can kind of understand and explain, and you can't. And actually, often explain it ruins them. Like
Mm.
in music, you play a song for your friend, and your friend's like, "This sounds like early 1975 with a touch of," and you're like, "Oh God!" In
Yeah.
Spiral Carpets, you're like, "Stop!"
Yeah.
Like I'm already labeling it, trying to
Yeah.
figure out what it is, or like where you're just like, "Ah, just listen. That's what we do with this. We can do that later. We can pitchfork it later." Uh,
Yeah. Well, what you said about connecting emotionally to your own book as you're reading it, um, uh, uh, about 5 years ago, I was writing some music similarly just for myself, and I just was like so delighted in the music listening to it on my headphones. I was checking mixes. I just
mhm.
started dancing, and I've
Yes,
never in the past I've never done that. Like I would get hired to work with a band or work on this, and it's all up here. We're all trying to
right,
trying to do this with this music and express this, and it's all. I mean, we are expressing ourselves, but it's being it's like it can only go so far, right? We
right,
can't like
right,
fully
right,
let it
right,
drop
right, right,
down. And so
right,
when
right.
I found something that I was just so excited that I could not help but move, it was just so freeing because it's like this is the only place I want to be where I'm
Yes,
creating because everything
yes,
else it's just not worth it.
yes, yes, yes,
What
yes,
else am
yes,
like what are we doing here? What am I doing
yes,
this for
yes.
otherwise? Especially with something like the arts, like music. Like most of us didn't get into this because of the steady paycheck, or because of the health insurance or the great pension. You do this because there's something in you that has to be expressed.
Even right in our culture, even the artists are having to work through such cultural shrapnel. The
Mm.
antennas are so jammed with so many things. So every way in which we sit, breathe deeper, and listen to what's asking for expression is the healing of the whole thing, clearing up the whole thing so we can receive. Yeah, yeah, that very much. And like what, like I don't have any training. I haven't done any writing. I haven't read sci-fi. I don't know anything about writing novels. I don't. So I didn't have like a larger arc for a character or why that character gave that speech.
Mm.
Um, or that I had a need to make sure people knew that. It was just Bourne's was fascinated with Ziga May's man Philippe, and then starts asking her questions. What's he ask her about? Oh, right, right, right. Of course he does. Philippe likes his options. Yeah. Bourne's gives, and then Bourne's launches into a big speech. in front of the oven about dying so that you can be present. Yeah, of course. Let's do that. Well, look at these, like and then laughing like, oh God, that's a funny speech, and moves me in some way. Like just almost like going by that. That seems like that's the right color there.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, that's the magic that that we all want to feel, and that like we're all chasing, no matter what we're
Yes.
doing, artist or
Yeah.
not.
Yeah. Yeah.
You're creating a
Hmm.
business.
Absolutely.
You're a parent. You're planning a trip next summer. Like
Oh,
we want to
oh,
tap into that.
so true. So true. Yep.
Well, Rob, thank you so much for this time. Thank you for this
Um,
book and for showing the way in the way that you do it.
oh, well, thank you. It's such a gift. And just to have somebody like you read it and show me all kinds of things in it that I didn't know were there. It's just so delightful. Really, really, really enjoyable. Yeah. Hmm. Piddle, 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 as they say.
That is so disruptive to the system, right?
Quick question for you.
Yeah.
If you had to choose between a t-shirt that said
Oh.
piddle, piddle, piddle on it,
Hmm.
t-shirt that said teen who grows bears, or a t-shirt that said across the front in big letters, you messed with the wrong series 5.
That's the one for me. It's an inside joke on kind of an inside joke. You know what I mean?
Yes.
There's the most layers to that one. I like that.
Okay, good.
Yeah.
Good. Or
Yeah.
else obviously just welcome to Furnace,
Sure.
because that's
Sure.
just what the heck.
Yeah, you can't go wrong there. Something about that place. Something about that planet.
I love it. I love it. That's great. Great
Yeah.
talking.
You too.
I'll
Thank you,
I'll
Rob.
I'll see you down the road.
All right.
Thanks.
Take care,
Bye
Rob.
bye.